Dear friend on the path of wisdom, let us embark on a journey into the core of the Buddha's teachings through a deceptively simple but profound question. If I am not my thoughts, who is thinking them? Perhaps you have felt the tug of this inquiry while noticing how certain ideas appear from nowhere, as if someone else planted them in your mind. Imagine a scene in your daily routine: washing dishes, commuting, or glancing at your phone when a thought intrudes unannounced. Where does it come from? And who hosts it? Many of us believe we consciously generate all mental content. Yet the Buddhist tradition suggests otherwise. In truth, much of our thinking unfolds on autopilot. This recognition does not imply that we have no say in our lives. Instead, it opens a doorway to insight, revealing how our mind's complexity can be navigated and transformed through mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Have you ever realized that your mind can spin off into completely different directions without your deliberate choice? One moment you are focused on a task, and the next you are lost in a memory or worry. The Buddhist teachings refer to this phenomenon through the principle of dependent origination, pratityasamutpada. In essence, every event, including our thoughts, arises from various causes and conditions. The untrained mind often behaves like a curious monkey, leaping unpredictably from branch to branch. Our worries about tomorrow, anxieties regarding social judgments, or random recollections of childhood, each may surface seemingly out of nowhere. Yet if we look deeper, we find subtle triggers, perhaps a faint smell, a tone in someone's voice, or just a stray association from a prior conversation. The question, who is actually doing the thinking, emerges when we see that thoughts arise even when we would prefer an empty mind. The mind, left to itself, can chatter incessantly. This chatter is not necessarily negative. However, if we identify too strongly with each passing idea, we risk entangling ourselves in perpetual tension. Central to Buddhism is the doctrine of anatta, non-self. Many misunderstand this as denying personal existence. Instead, it refers to the absence of a permanent controller behind our experiences. According to the Buddha, each person comprises 5 aggregates: form, body, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. We group these, calling it me, but a deeper look reveals that each aggregate changes ceaselessly. If none of these components is fixed, does that negate our sense of self entirely? Actually, anatta grants freedom from the burden of possessing a rigid identity. Rather than stating I am my thoughts, we see them as phenomena passing through awareness. This recognition relieves us of the need to define ourselves by fleeting mental content. Imagine believing you are a wave in the ocean. You exist for a moment, cresting and crashing, thinking I am this wave. But that form changes. blending back into the greater ocean. While a wave can have a unique shape and momentum, it never stands isolated. Similarly, we can acknowledge the specificity of our personal experiences without reifying them as a separate, eternal self. The Buddha urged practitioners to investigate the mind through mindfulness. When a stray thought emerges, instead of rejecting or judging it, we turn our attention to noticing it. We might silently label it as thinking, and watch how long it lingers. The Satipatthana Sutta describes this process of attending to body, feelings, mental states, and mental objects. Our usual mode is to jump in, react, or cling. Mindfulness helps us break this habit. If a memory triggers guilt, we note the guilt as it arises and see that it passes unless we keep feeding it stories. The marvel is that by stepping into the role of observer, we detect how these stories gain strength from our belief in them. The moment we relax that belief, we lessen the emotional charge. A classic analogy likens our thought stream to a flowing river. We need not halt the current to discover clarity. We only need to watch it calmly. When we identify every passing ripple as me, we get caught in tumult. If we stand on the bank, observing the currents of the mind, we cultivate insight into their impermanent nature. This approach can be both humbling and liberating, for it shows that our mental content, however persistent, is constantly shifting. Returning to modern life, we see our mind bombarded by stimuli, alerts on phones, looming deadlines, social media comparisons. These feed a cycle of automatic thoughts. A quick interaction at work can spark hours of internal dialogue about perceived slights. Or reading a short post on social media may trigger envy or inadequacy. The mind runs, often without our explicit consent. When we remain oblivious to this process, we might assume I chose to worry. From a Buddhist view, the mind is reacting to seeds of memory, cultural conditioning, or deep-rooted habits. The recognition that I did not deliberately think this can bring surprising relief. One potent method is pausing. When you notice your mind hijacked by tension, take one mindful breath and ask, is this thought constructive or harmful? This momentary gap can interrupt habitual reactivity. You begin to sense choice where you once felt compelled to follow every mental command. Over time, mindful pausing builds resilience. Dependent origination asserts that all phenomena, including mental states, arise due to preceding conditions. The Buddha's insight under the Bodhi tree illuminated this law. Suffering does not appear from nowhere. Neither do random thoughts. Each is a consequence of myriad influences that connect everything in a grand tapestry of cause and effect. Understanding this principle helps us see that we are not isolated islands. Our mental life is shaped by genetics, upbringing, environment, and moment-to-moment occurrences. This perspective can dissolve self-blame or the blaming of others. It invites compassionate acceptance, recognizing that we and everyone else are subject to conditions, far from making us victims of fate. Acknowledging conditions offers a path to liberation. If negative thought patterns arise from certain triggers, we can adjust those triggers or our reaction. For instance, realizing that scrolling through certain social media content fosters envy, we can limit exposure. Or if we identify an inner wound fueling anxious thoughts, we can seek appropriate healing by skillfully engaging with causes. We shape conditions for more peaceful mental activity. The question, if you are not your thoughts, who is thinking them, stirs debate in philosophical and spiritual contexts. Buddhism's answer is that no unchanging self needs to exist for thoughts to arise. They materialize from shifting conditions. Instead of a solitary puppeteer pulling mental strings, there is a dynamic interplay and unfolding process that includes intentions, memories, feelings, and consciousness. We do possess agency, yet it is an emergent property rather than evidence of a fixed me. Agency can manifest when we choose to investigate the mind, cultivate compassion, or shift our habits. Indeed, the path to awakening hinges on this agency, but it remains fluid, shaped by both internal and external causes. Grasping at a personal thinker commonly yields pride, fear, and conflict. We guard an imagined center that feels threatened. When we see thoughts as events rather than possessions, compassion tends to flourish. We gain empathy for all who experience the storm of incessant mental chatter. We sense humility, seeing how easily we can be carried away by passing conditions. Consider a busy morning. You are late for work, your stomach growls, and your shoulders tense up. Immediately, anxious thoughts form. The body's discomfort form, and the tension feeling color your mental landscape. Pausing to note, tension is present, can diffuse the subsequent surge of worry. You have recognized the chain reaction linking bodily states to mental content. Perception categorizes what we encounter. That coworker's short email might be labeled as hostile. Mental formations build on that label, spawning a story of victimhood. We interpret fleeting words as personal attacks. Later, consciousness registers the swirl of agitation. Understanding how each aggregate plays a role reveals that the self we cling to is not a single entity but a pattern generated in the moment. This insight spares us from reflexive overreactions. Noting, silently say thinking or worrying when a thought arises. Then refocus on the present moment, whether the breath or an everyday activity. Open awareness. Instead of anchoring attention on a single object, let the mind remain open. Observe how thoughts drift in and out like clouds. Investigative reflection. Occasionally ask, What led to this chain of thought? Which sensations or memories triggered it? This fosters clarity around cause and effect. With sustained mindfulness, you become better at catching harmful thoughts before they spiral. Stressful mental loops shorten. Creative insights may flow more readily because the mind, freed from clutter, gains space. You also recognize that each cluster of thoughts dissolves if left ungrasped. Over time, this recognition can cultivate confidence in your capacity to dwell peacefully in a turbulent world. Some individuals interpret Buddhist teachings as indicating thought annihilation, yet forcibly silencing the mind generally backfires. The more we try to crush thoughts, the more they resurface with force. We end up in an inner battle, creating tension rather than peace. The middle way calls us to allow thoughts to be known and gently released. On the other hand, we do not let the mind aimlessly wander forever. The Buddha emphasized skillful thought samma-sankappa as part of the Noble Eightfold Path. We use our capacity for thinking to reflect wisely, plan constructive actions, and care for others. Like a tool, thought can serve or harm. The measure lies in whether we cling to it as self or treat it as a resource. Recognizing that the mind is a swirl of causes opens the heart to compassion. If you see how easily your thoughts can run wild, you understand that others grapple with the same. This insight undergirds the four sublime abodes Brahmaviharas: loving kindness metta, wishing well-being for all; compassion karuna, seeing suffering and aspiring to alleviate it; sympathetic joy mudita, taking delight in others' happiness; equanimity upekkha, maintaining balance in changing conditions. Observe how you speak to yourself when negative thoughts flood in. Do you condemn yourself for feeling anxious or depressed? A gentle approach would be applying compassion inwardly, recognizing that anxiety arises from certain triggers, not from being inherently flawed. This shift from self-blame to kind understanding can vastly reduce mental anguish. In the workplace, deadlines and interpersonal dynamics can stir tension. By practicing a brief mindfulness break, perhaps focusing on your breath for 10 seconds before responding to an email, you can halt unskillful reactivity. You see that frustration is a transient mental state, not your unchangeable identity. This clarity often yields more measured, effective communication. Family members can inadvertently push our buttons, triggering old emotional patterns. When a heated conversation flares, noticing your body's tension, the swirl of blameful thoughts, and the underlying fear might interrupt a cycle of argument. You can choose a moment of calm, stepping away or breathing deeply, remembering that each participant is shaped by their background and triggers. Compassion then has room to soften confrontations. In deeper Buddhist meditation, practitioners develop jhana states of profound concentration and tranquility. When the mind stabilizes on a single object, the usual chatter quiets. This does not eradicate the capacity for thought, but it temporarily suspends it. Emerging from jhana, one sees how noisy normal consciousness can be. The experience of stillness deepens insight into impermanence and non-self. While not everyone pursues intense concentration training, glimpses of calm can transform your everyday mindset. Even short periods of uninterrupted focus on the breath, a prayer, or a candle flame heighten awareness of how quickly thoughts ordinarily shift. Such clarity spills over, making daily actions more mindful and less reactive. The Buddha compared Dharma to a raft used to cross a river. After crossing, one need not carry the raft on their shoulder. Similarly, we use skillful means, including thought and study, to transcend suffering. Once the mind reaches deeper freedom, we release the tools if they become burdensome. This teaching underscores the importance of flexibility. Just as we do not cling to every passing thought, we do not cling to doctrinal concepts once their purpose is served. With consistent mindfulness, we start noticing that much of our mental pain arises from ownership. My problem, my reputation, my success. The practice is not about apathy but about loosening unhealthy attachment. When we ease that grip, we find it easier to respond compassionately to problems or challenges. Paradoxically, this detachment often results in greater effectiveness and kindness. Before diving into daily tasks, take a moment to note how the mind feels. Are you already anxious about pending responsibilities? Without judgment, label that anxiety. You might offer a kind thought. May I approach this day with clarity? Such a gentle grounding can set a more mindful tone for the day. Periodically pause at lunch or while waiting in line, and take a few deep breaths. Watch whatever emerges in your mind. Even 5 seconds of conscious breathing can break a stressful cycle, reminding you that thoughts do not represent your entirety. As you prepare for sleep, reflect on moments of insight or kindness. Did you manage to catch an angry thought before it escalated? Did you show patience towards someone who was upset? Acknowledge these steps. If any regrets arise, note them kindly. This ritual helps the mind realize it need not carry unresolved negativity into tomorrow. Some may worry, this sounds idealistic. My mind is too scattered. Recall the Buddha's example. Most of us start with a chaotic mind. The practice is incremental. Even advanced practitioners face wandering thoughts. Yet each moment of mindfulness carves a new neural pathway. Over months or years, subtle but tangible progress emerges. Buddhism emphasizes community sangha. Practicing with friends or mentors provides encouragement. Reading supportive texts, listening to talks, or joining meditation groups can keep your motivation alive. When you feel stuck, discussing difficulties with experienced teachers can offer fresh perspectives. It is one thing to grasp the non-self principle intellectually, yet another to embody it in challenging moments. The gap narrows when we consistently practice mindful observation, letting knowledge merge with lived experience. A fleeting sense of peace might arise, hinting that we are more than reactive thought patterns. When we consider who is thinking these thoughts, we might long for a definitive answer. Buddhism, however, often invites us to rest in mystery. The question points us away from rigid self-concepts toward an open, investigative stance. Relaxing our grip on certainty can be freeing, revealing a deeper dimension of human experience where compassion, interconnectedness, and serenity can flourish. Even a single moment of observing a thought without becoming entangled represents progress. Each such victory accumulates. We gradually develop confidence in the possibility of a calmer mind. Over time, this fosters resilience, allowing us to handle life's inevitable stressors with greater ease. As we cling less to self-centered thinking, we may notice a new warmth in our approach to others. Compassion flows more readily because we see how universal the struggle with runaway thoughts is. We can rejoice in others' successes without envy, feeling genuine mudita, sympathetic joy. Our mind stands more balanced, less enthralled by fleeting mental weather. Remember, the Buddhist teachings emphasize direct investigation. You need not force yourself to believe you are not your thoughts, rather. Observe how ideas surface and fade. Notice the relief in recognizing that no single idea truly defines you. Realize, too, that you can shape your mental landscape skillfully through compassion, ethics, and awareness. Thoughts will continue arising, but you can cultivate a spacious perspective. Let them come and go like waves. Through mindful observation, you see that identification with each wave is optional. Freed from excessive self-clinging, the mind becomes an ally. Additionally, consider that practice extends beyond formal meditation sessions. Simple daily acts of kindness, mindful listening, or pausing to breathe when frustration flares all reinforce the core insight of non-self. The more we see thoughts arising and dissolving, the more we realize freedom is always near. Each compassionate choice reflects the profound truth that we are not bound by fleeting mental chatter. Instead, we stand poised to awaken genuine, enduring clarity, peace, and joy. Concluding paragraph for greater inspiration as you proceed on this path. Remember that gradual growth can yield remarkable transformation. Every time you pause to breathe instead of engaging in an unhelpful mental loop, you plant a seed of freedom. Small increments of mindfulness accumulate, changing not only how you think but also how you feel and act. Through it all, compassion remains a guiding torch, reminding you that every being grapples with thoughts beyond their control. May these reflections inspire you to trust your inner goodness. Meet life's challenges with kindness, and keep exploring the vibrant truth of non-self. In that explorative spirit, the question, if I am not my thoughts, who is thinking them, becomes a gateway to deeper wonder, humility, and clarity. Nowadays, in a modern society flooded with constant streams of information and rapidly advancing digital technology, the practice of mindfulness and the cultivation of compassion require increasingly creative approaches. Rather than letting social media and mobile devices plunge us into a spiral of reaction and comparison, we can adopt digital mindfulness, briefly stepping away from endless notifications to listen to our inner voice and ask, is what I'm about to do online truly beneficial for myself and others? By doing so, we not only lessen the stress and negativity caused by judgment and comparison, but also gain the opportunity to return and nurture our positive energy. Furthermore, when we reflect more deeply on the spirit of non-self and heartfelt compassion, we realize that every small interaction in the digital realm can either spread loving kindness or cause harm. Sharing a meaningful post, participating in online community projects, or simply offering sincere words of encouragement are all ways to sow seeds of goodness in both virtual and real-life environments. In this way, the drive for volunteerism and social service is strongly awakened. Rather than separating ourselves from others, we perceive a close-knit interconnection. Even the smallest act of goodwill helps soothe collective suffering, while simultaneously bolstering our inner sense of peace. By blending conscious technology use with altruistic endeavors, we experience the essence of one for all on a profound level. Enlivened by the vow of compassion in the digital age,